Hey everyone, welcome back to Ontario Gardening. So today is a little bit of a bummer video, but I'm hoping that at the end of it, it will empower you to do something great in your garden and bring yourself some joy. And we are going to be talking about gardening with chronic illness or disability or something else that you might be going through right now in your life. For those of you that know me, this is coming from personal experience, so I'm not just like talking for nothing. Last summer, I had to try and garden. I was actually written off work. I was home for months, bedridden. At one point, I was into liver failure, so I'm nauseous all the time and just sick all the time. And so I personally have to follow some of these recommendations. So it's just some of the tips that I feel were really helpful on my gardening journey as I learned how to garden with a chronic illness, because I do suffer from actually a couple of them. So my first huge tip, and I feel like it's the most helpful for anybody, is do what you can do. Not what Joe Blow down the street does, not what you see on, YouTube. If people have these crazy gardens that are huge, don't try and compare yourself to other people. It just makes you feel worse about yourself in the event that you can't do it. Just do what you can. Even if that looks like you're, growing a couple pots of tomatoes and not even putting a seed in the ground. Do what you can physically do. Last summer, when I was going through that battle and things were at the worst, there was a little bit of regret in I wasn't able to get out there and do things that I wanted to do, and things died off and I couldn't keep up. Who cares? Who cares if you planted a seed and it dies because you couldn't get out there, or whatever the case, you had appointments that you couldn't get out there. Just give yourself some grace. Who cares? Stop comparing yourself and do what's manageable for you. Which leads me to number 2 is know your limits and plant within it. If you know that you are suffering with aches and pains, that it's not, you're not going to be able to get out there and do weeding every day, or you're not going to be able to get out there and physically get down and plant those seeds. Know your limits. Know that you might be only to attain 3 tomato plants or even 1 tomato plant. Who cares? Know your limit. Make sure that you're not setting yourself up for failure, basically. Those two kind of tie together on tips. Number 3 is utilize gardening tools. So those are things like automatic tillers, garden gloves with the claws on them to make it easier to dig, utilizing just different tools that they have out there. There's so many things now that they have out there. Kneeling pads, chairs. They have so many different things for people with disabilities or physical ailments that make your life so much easier. Utilize them. And you want to know what? It doesn't have to be like kneeling pads, for example. It doesn't have to be this fancy $50 kneeler that you find on Amazon. They sell them at the dollar store. You could make your own with a pillow. And if all else fails, my huge recommendation is to sit down. If you physically can't do it anymore, or you feel like you're going to pass out, because that did happen to me last year, sit down. If you have to go out in your front yard and weed your garden in front of the neighbors sitting down, who cares? Do what you're going to do to make you feel better. Because if gardening becomes a chore and you're not enjoying it anymore, then what's the point of doing it? Number 4, this was also a big one. Watch the weather. So on days when I was feeling like extra nauseous and it was super hot and humid outside, I tried to stay inside if I could. Unfortunately, a lot of my gardening was done through the window last year. It was more planning than actually doing. But if you watch that weather and make sure, and it's the same if you have like really bad arthritis or really bad aches and pains and it's kind of like a damp day outside, stay inside and wait till the weather passes, because that's a huge one. Watching the weather, taking breaks, listening to your body and giving it what it needs, making sure that you're taking breaks is a huge one. Eating little meals in between, hydrating is huge, especially in the summer. Just listen to your body, watching that weather, and making sure the conditions outside are good for you to go out into. Number 5, if possible, if you have the community, or if you have a neighbor or a niece, nephew, grandchild, whatever the case may be, ask for help if possible. If you might need that little extra help today, maybe once a summer you ask them. I used to go and drive down when my grandma started getting physically unable to garden anymore, I would go down twice, because I live about an hour and a half, 2 hours away. I would go down and weed her garden for her once in the spring. She tried to maintain it through as much as she could. I would come again, midsummer and do it. Like whenever I could, I would help her out. The one year my sister and I went over and planted her entire garden. So just utilize the help. Last year, my spouse was amazing and helped me with so many different things that I couldn't physically even get into the garden to harvest my stuff that I had put in there. Get the help if you can. If not, maybe there's somebody in your community that you could hire for minimal money, or there's many different options. Get onto Facebook. It's a huge community for gardeners in your area. I find that really, really a helpful tool to find people. Instagram is another thing if you use those sites. And try and find people in your community maybe that can help you with those things. Don't be afraid to ask. I mean, a lot of people and you know what? A lot of times, like if you ask somebody to come and help you harvest your tomatoes, you can give them a few tomatoes to take home or feed them a tomato sandwich. Like, do what you can to try and maybe get some help if you need it. Number 6, anyways, doesn't really matter. Pick plants that help, if you can and you're able to do a little bit more, pick plants that actually help aiding your illness. So there's many herbs out there that you can plant. Get yourself a herb book or go on the internet, go to the library. There's so many resources out there that will help you pick different plants. That's actually one of my main focuses this year in my personal garden, is planting stuff that I can turn into teas and tinctures and maybe some topical ointments and stuff that help with pain management and that sort of thing, inflammation, digestion, like whatever you're going through. There's so many different things. I did a video before. It's called How to Make a Tea Garden, and there's a book in there, and it's like $7 on Amazon. It is the holy grail for making teas. Basically, just to sum it up, what it is, it's a book where if I had stomach cramps that day, I could go into this book and look up what tea blend would help with my stomach cramps. Or if I'm feeling like I have a headache, I can go in there and look up what tea blend would help cure headaches. So for me personally, I very much struggle with inflammation and swelling of the joints and the feet and stuff is one of the things that I have. So this year, I'm really focusing on growing teas and roots that are going to help me, herbs and roots that I can put into teas to help kind of get some of that swelling down, because mobility was a huge issue for me last year. At one point, I was unable to even walk for long periods of time. So growing plants, doing that research, talking to your doctors, and seeing what might help you in growing that in your garden. So I have a little bonus tip, because that kind of wraps it up, just, a few different little things, but grow something pretty. If you're growing food and you're, getting things canned up and producing stuff for you to eat, don't forget to grow something that you like, or put something in the garden that brings you joy. So whether that be an ornament or, something tacky that other people might not like, if you like it, put it in there. Who cares? Grow flowers that you like to look at, because part of gardening and therapy is also joy. And if you can grow something that brings you a little bit of joy in that garden, something pretty that you can pick and put on your table or on your kitchen counter, why not do it? Grow that little extra something. I like to grow snapdragons every year. They remind me of my grandma, who is no longer with us. And so I grow those every year. And every time I see them, it makes me happy. It brings me joy. I like to see those snapdragons in the garden. And it actually is a reminder for me to keep going and keep pushing and keep living life while I'm alive. So anyways, thank you so much for listening to me talk about that. I hope that it helps somebody, and to let you know that you're not alone and that you can do the things you still enjoy if you just kind of take that extra planning and listen to yourself and, just try and enjoy it if you can. Life is short. So anyways, if you have any questions or you want to talk about community in the comments, feel free. I'm always a listening ear, and I am an open book if you'd like to talk. So thanks again. We will talk to you soon. Bye.